Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight to learn about the library. I see people are chatting it up in the chat, and welcome everyone from all these different places. It's so nice to see you tonight. My name is Carrie Bird. I am your reference and instruction librarian, and we're going to talk about some of the resources we have available to you tonight, some of the best practices for using those resources, and making sure you're comfortable finding everything. This session is being recorded and you will be able to refer back to it later. If you are here because a professor has made it a requirement or offered extra credit for it, at the end of the session, I will post a link in the chat. And if you complete that survey, that's how I let your professors know that you attended. Otherwise, the only thing I know is that you attended, but not who your professors are. So I can't tell you. I can't tell them that you made it. So make sure that you complete that at the end of the session. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. As we're going, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. You can just ask them or you can put them in the chat, whatever works best for you. Oh, I got to scoot this on over out of my way. There we go. That little bar always gets in the way for me. All right. Back one more step. There we go. All right, so let me minimize this. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, perfect. Okay, so from the college homepage, a couple things for you to know. If we come up to this little menu in the right-hand corner, we can go to our UC login. And this is where you will get access to Grammarly, which is a grammar and writing tool. And you can also get access to Microsoft 365 here. Those are made available to you by the college. We also, if we come to the college homepage, can go to academics and then to library. And from here, you want to click on this big old blue button. And this is going to take you to all the good stuff. So if you only bookmark one thing tonight, make it this. All right, this is your best launching point for all of the library resources. Here in the right-hand side, we do have the library chat. It's after hours, so nobody is online right now, but during the day, you can talk to a live person on the chat. After hours, you can come over to Ask a Librarian, or if you just don't want to get on the chat, you can come over to Ask a Librarian, and you can see the contact information for all of our faculty librarians, but you can also use the Ask a Librarian form. If you submit this form, it will contact all four of us at the same time, and one of us will get back to you as quickly as possible. We're always happy to hear from you individually, but if I'm not available, then you have to wait. If you use the form, you get a quicker response from whoever is available at the time. We're going to come back to citation help, I promise. Books and ebooks. All of our books and ebooks are available through our UC search, but if you wanted to browse a particular collection, you could come over to citation help or, wow, blonde moment. And I am blonde, so I'm allowed to say that. If you wanted to view a particular collection, you could come over to the ebooks link and view all of our specific ebook collections. We have our FAQ, we have our feedback form, we have our interlibrary loan. Interlibrary loan is a way for you to ask for materials that we don't have. While it would be amazing if we had access to everything ever, it's unfortunately not feasible. So if there's something that we don't have that you need access to for your research, you can request it from Interlibrary Loan. Everything you need to know about that is right there. We don't charge you for Interlibrary Loan. It's a free service. The only thing you ever pay is if you get something physical, like you get a book mailed to you, you do have to pay the return shipping on that. But other than that, unless you lose or somehow catastrophically damage an item, there are no fees associated with our interlibrary loan. We do have laptop checkout. If you happen to be in the area, you are welcome to come in and take advantage of that. Unfortunately, for those of you who are not in the area, that's not super useful, but if you do come to campus for a weekend residency or something like that, you can take advantage of that also. Library orientation, I do believe you've figured that out, but just in case you haven't, when you go to the library orientation sessions, this is where you will view the recordings right now. These are the recordings from last bi-term. The recordings from this bi-term should be up on Monday. We have our library tutorials. We also have our makerspace. Again, if you happen to pop into the area and you want to check that out, feel free. Oh, okay. So to get to this page, let me go through that one more time. If you go to the college homepage and you click on academics, you can go to the library, and then from here you'll click the big blue button. And that's going to take you to all the good stuff right there. So we have our tutorials, our makerspace, and we have lots of cool stuff in the makerspace, y'all. So again, if you happen to be in the area, come in and check it out. And then we also have our Appalachian collection and our Governor Burt T. Combs papers. The Governor Burt T. Combs papers are considered to be part of our rare book collection, and anything that's in our rare book collection typically does not circulate, which means it's non-lending. However, if you needed access to one of those things, we would be happy to help you get access to it, whether that would be arranging for it to be sent to you somehow or scanning in the sections that you need. Okay, in the middle, we have our library hours. These do periodically change due to things like the holidays. I got to change that. That doesn't have Memorial Day in it yet. But if they change due to the holidays, or like right now we're on summer hours, that will get posted up here. If they ever change due to inclement weather, as long as I have both internet and power still, I will update that to let you know. If I don't have internet or power, it's probably pretty bad. Just assume we're closed. But if you're ever curious, you can always reach out. Even if the library is closed for something like inclement weather, we do still make sure that we're working from home if we possibly can. So we'll still check our emails and get back to people as quickly as possible. Okay, here in the middle, in our first little box, we have UC Search. UC Search is what we call a discovery search. And that means that it searches almost every source that we have. Some of our resources are not able to integrate with it, and we'll talk about one of those particular sources in a little while, but almost everything is in there. There's ups and downs to that, and we'll talk about those advantages and disadvantages in a little while. But if you're just looking for kind of one-stop shopping, somewhere to help you get started, UC Search is a great place to do that. It's also a great way to access all of our books and ebooks, as I mentioned before. We have our study room reservations, and if you are planning to come to campus and you know you're going to need a place to post up for a little while, study rooms are a great place to do that. I do encourage you, if that's your situation, to make sure that you are going to reserve one, because they do get filled up pretty fast. So it's always good to make sure that you'll have one available to you. We have our databases A to Z. This is a straight up alphabetical listing of all of our databases. If you don't know what database you want, this might not be that helpful, but if you do know what database you want, you can go straight to it through databases A to Z. But let's go back to not knowing what databases we want. In that case, we want to come to our research guides. There is a research guide available for every area of study that UC offers. So when you come to the research guide, if you're in education, you can choose the education guide. If you're in counseling, you can choose the counseling guide. And all of these guides will help you find the best resources for your area of study. So when we're getting ready to get into this, what I would love is if you would share your area of study with me so that I know which guides to focus on this evening. Education, counseling, business, education, counseling, counseling. All right. Coaching, Okay, so let me open up some guides here. We're going to start with Allied Health and Sports Science. And let's see, we've got some business. We've got some counseling. We've got some education. And just for funsies, let me scroll down here and grab leadership. Now, for those of you who are doing leadership, as you know, leadership does not exist in a vacuum. Oh, information and technology, okay. So leadership does not exist in a vacuum. So it's rare that you will find everything you need just on the leadership guide, information systems and technology. I gotcha. Um, so you'll look at the leadership guide and the education guide, the leadership guide and the business guide, the leadership guide and the history guide. Whatever your area of specialization is, it's always going to be where you want to focus your search. So nobody lives in one spot by themselves. Now, leadership does have some great information for you. So let's look at that one first. And oops, let's look at the right one first. Let me scooch over here. So there's all kinds of great information here for you, including some information on finding statistics and finding survey instruments as you get further into your dissertation. That will be really helpful to you. So just be aware that those options are here. There's also some of the databases that our leaderships commonly use pulled out here as well. These are not necessarily all specific to one area of study. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the subject-specific guides, but just be aware that this is here for you. Okay. On down the road we go. So on each of these guides, they're pretty similar. And the goal with that is to make sure that you can navigate between the guides if necessary. So if you're doing school counseling, you might be looking at both the counseling guide and the education guide. If you're doing coaching and you're focusing on student athletes, you might be looking at the Allied Health and Sports Science guide and the education guide. So there's a lot of crossover in these different ones. So by the way, for the health and human performance coaching, all of those are getting condensed into one guide. So just be aware that your name may change a little bit, but you'll be there. So work in process. Progress? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to keep going through. So as you can see, we have all of our lovely tabs here, and these tabs are going to help you find your best resources. So we start on top resources, but we're going to go down to the end first and talk about citation help tools. Okay, citation help. I think all of you are APA. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Now, point of clarification for my PhD EDD people. You are going to use a UC specific version of APA. So tonight I'm going to talk about general APA. You may have some small tweaks that you have to make. I know they give you all of that formatting and everything to work with. So just know that you may have to tweak things that I show you tonight a little bit. I am not the expert on that, so I will trust your professors to guide you in the right direction with that particular formatting issue. But tonight we're going to talk about APA in general. We have access here to the Learning Commons. The Learning Commons is our student support center. They're going to help you with your writing, your formatting, your grammar, your citations, all of that good stuff. They have people who can read and review your papers and make comments on them to help you make better papers. All kinds of great resources there. And if you have questions about writing, formatting, citations, anything like that, you should definitely call them and not me. Not because I'm unwilling to help you, but because they are the experts and this is their job. They are going to be so much better at it than me. And so really focus on getting help from the people who are going to be able to give you the best, most accurate answers on these topics. We also have a resource here to help you find the DOI, which we can talk about a little bit more when we get into Academic Writer. So how many of you, I'm going to ask y'all a question. Let me pop you back up. How many of you are currently using some kind of citation manager or bibliographic manager? So that would be things like Purdue OWL, Zotero, Mendeley, RefWorks, Perla, EndNote, Academic Writer. Oh, people love the OWL. Grammarly. So Grammarly is good, but Academic Writer is going to be like a little bit of a step up from that in terms of your bibliographic management specifically. Okay, so a lot of you are not, a few of you, Purdue OWL is great, Grammarly is great. So let's get into Academic Writer a little bit. Number one, why Academic Writer versus all of the others that I listed, plus all the ones that I forget about. Well, the main reason that we provide access to Academic Writer is not because Purdue OWL is terrible, boo Purdue OWL. No, I love Purdue OWL, it's great. But Academic Writer is actually created and supported by the American Psychological Association. And who knows more about the APA style than the APA? Theoretically, nobody. So this is considered the authoritative resource when it comes to APA. So that is the specific reason that we provide access to Academic Writer. Having said that, if you have one that you love and you're comfortable with and you want to keep using it, no one is here to tell you that you can't. Go forth with it. But we're going to talk about it just so that people can see what it can do for them, and also just so that people who have no familiarity with bibliographic managers at all can kind of get comfortable with them. Okay, yeah, we've got stuff that people have no idea exists. So we're going to get into it just so that y'all can see what is out there for you. So in Academic Writers, first thing I want to say is that none of the databases, none of the tools like Academic Writer are things that you can bookmark. You can bookmark the citation help page, you can bookmark the library homepage, you can bookmark your research guide, but the actual resources need to be signed into in order to use them. Now, you use the same login that you use for your email. You use the same login that you use for your Blackboard or your iLearn. But if you go to the library before you go to any of those places, it'll make you sign in. If you've already signed into your email, it's going to know that you're signed in and keep you going. So you may never see a library login page. However, in order to take full advantage of some of the resources, you need to log into those individual resources as well. And for that, you will have to set up personal accounts. Okay. You can't bookmark Academic Writer because if I click on this and we watch it do its little technology thing up here in the corner where it resolves through multiple URLs, that's the sign-in process, right? So it doesn't know that I am me. It knows that I am University of the Cumberlands. In order for it to know that I am me, I have to sign in. So if I bookmark this, next time I come, I can sign in with the account I set up, but it's going to say that my license has expired and I need to give them money. Boo. We're not giving them money. We've already given them money, quite a bit of money, right? So instead, you're just going to make sure that you're going through the library first. I'm going to come down to my references. I'm going to click go to my references, and I'm going to sign in here. If you've never done this before, your first time out, you're going to create an account. I've already got my account set up, so I'm going to click login. And you can see I have a whole pile of references listed out here. Now, for each of these references, I can assign a tag. And that tag makes it so that I can come in here and I can say, I want to see all of my inclement weather tags. And I can see all of the articles that I have assigned to that paper, right? I've said this is all the resources I'm going to use for this project. I'm going to tag them out here so that I can find them easily. Now you can tag things for more than one paper and sort them that way as well. So that's all fine and dandy too. It's not a one and done thing, but just be aware that this is a great way for you to organize your resources. If I want to add things to this list, I can do that one of two ways. I can click Add References, and I can choose what type of reference I want to add from this list. So if I wanted to add a journal article, I will click journal article and I could fill all of this in manually. But why would I do that when I can just import that? So I'm going to click on import and I'm going to select file origin and I'm going to tell you that this does not matter. It makes you do it, but if you don't know your file origin, you're like, did I get this from EBSCO or did I get this from ProQuest? It don't matter, just pick one. It's gonna be just fine either way. So I'm gonna choose my file. I'm gonna snag the one I prepped for you earlier and I'm gonna hit submit. And now I can view that imported record and it's gonna show me the one that I just uploaded. Now, there's a couple of problems with this one right out of the gate, so we need to fix this reference. Okay, for one thing, I'm missing all of my authors. For another, my title case is wrong. Now, this is not a fault of Academic Writer. What this means is that when I exported my citation from the database, and when we do our searches, I'll show you how to export a citation. It means that when I exported it, it did not export correctly. So I need to go back to my source and fix that. So I'm going to go to my link and I'm going to paste that in. And now I can fix this. So this is by, oops, it's thinking real hard about it. So this is by Hannah DeWald and Allison Graff. So I can come back to Academic Writer and I can fix that. And because these are blank, I'm going to delete them. And then I'm going to add one. And I'm just going to copy and paste this. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to put everybody in here, but I'm just going to give us an example. Oh my gosh. It's really going to be like that about it tonight. Sometimes I have noticed Chrome doesn't really want to let me copy and paste things anymore. Okay, so I've got my person over here. I can correct this just by clicking a button. Now, let's talk about DOI versus URL. Because URLs are bad. No, that's not quite fair. DOIs are good. DOIs are better according to APA standards. If a DOI is available, you should use the DOI. That's not always the case. There's not always a DOI. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, and it is basically a numeric code assigned to a particular article so that you can always find that exact same edition of that item, right? So in this case, for some reason, it exported. Well, that's not right. For some reason, it exported with the URL instead of the DOI. So let's see if a DOI is available. First place we're always going to check is in our database. No DOI is listed. So now I want to take my title of my article and I'm going to come back to my citation help page and go to Crossref. And when I search in Crossref, so good news, there is a DOI available. So I'm going to scoop that number up. And over here in Academic Writer, I'm going to switch this from URL to DOI. And I can paste that in. And then I'm going to add my copy paste worked that time. Hallelujah. Okay. I'm going to add this to my favorite spring example, allergic to everything, because I am. And I'm going to click add tag, and then I'm going to update my reference. Obviously, the ideal is when everything uploads correctly and I don't have to do any of that. And that is true for about 90% of the time. That 10% is still faster than having to enter everything manually, but it is admittedly a hassle. Okay. So all of this to this point is pretty standard. This is pretty much what you're going to find in any one of the many bibliographic managers that are out there. What sets Academic Writer apart is when we leave the reference area and we go into the writing area. So I could start a new paper and there's all kinds of templates that are going to help you with your formatting and setting everything up. But for now, we're just going to go to a paper I already have on my environmental allergies. And I can come in here and I can set up my title page. I can set up my author information and I can set up the body of my paper. Now, in theory, you could write your whole paper right here. I don't know that I necessarily recommend that from a personal perspective. I like to have the whole big page available to me to work in. I don't want a little tiny page when I can have my whole screen. You can pop this out into focus mode and it gives you a little bit more work space, but honestly, I think Academic Writer's highlight is that you can use it to whatever extent it is most beneficial to you. That could be writing your whole paper here, that could be just using it to set up your paper formatting, or that could be using it to help you generate your citations. All right, so if I wanted to create a citation for my paper, and I wanted to use the article that I just uploaded, I could come in here and I could say I want to insert, and I'm going to find and cite a reference. And I'm going to search for the reference that I just added. I think I typed in DeWald as her name. There she is. And I'm going to say that I want to cite this. And I'm going to say that I want a parenthetical and that it is a quotation. And I'm going to say that it's from page 27. What is up with my computer tonight? Okay, page 22 works too. All right, so now I'm going to put in my quotation. Now, if this was an article that I had open, I could, and I do have it open, so why not? I could look at my PDF and I can download this so I can have it available on my computer. And I could just copy and paste, theoretically, we'll see, my text in to Academic Writer. Nope, it's not going to let me do it. I should start using Firefox for everything. Okay, so more nonsense about allergies goes here. I don't need to add any punctuation or formatting or anything. It's going to do all of that for me. I'm going to hit submit. All of these pop-up boxes can be turned off. And now here is my parenthetical citation. I can also do a narrative citation. You can see that I have some of those here, and it doesn't just add it to my paper, which I can then copy and paste this into wherever I'm doing my actual work. But I can also export this, and I'm going to download it. And you can see that in addition to adding my citation to my paper, I've added it to my reference list as well. Now, inevitably, errors are going to happen. Things go wrong when we're exporting from all these different databases. It's just the nature of the beast. So your responsibility is always to be proofreading and copy editing to make sure that things are formatted correctly. But any citation manager is going to make this process so much faster and easier for you. Academic Writer is just kind of unique in that it's also going to be able to set up all of your paper formatting for you. Now, I do want to take a moment to say, I don't care where you write your papers. You could write it in Academic Writer, you could write it in Word, you could write it in Google Docs. I do want to remind you, however, that no matter where you write it, you should be backing up your papers frequently. No one place should be the only place. If you've got it on your computer hard drive, you should be backing it up to a thumb drive or to the cloud. If you've got it in the cloud, you should be saving it on a hard drive. Everything should be multiple places for your own safety, right? So remember, backups are good no matter where you're working. You can work wherever works best for you. Okay, let me close this 9 million word windows I've got going here. Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions about Academic Writer? Now, again, you don't have to use this. You can use all of these tools to whatever extent is beneficial for you. Nope. All right, we're going to keep on trucking then. So, out of Academic Writer we go. Out of Crossref we go. And remember, there are lots of reasons that an article may not have a DOI. So the fact that a DOI does not exist does not necessarily prohibit you from using an article. It just means you need to be able to say to your professor, I checked for a DOI in the databases. I checked for a DOI in Crossref. No DOI exists. But don't just throw it in there and hope they don't notice, because they will notice. They ask me to check these things all the time. Okay. So moving on from citation help, we also have tutorials for you. We have government documents, and all of these are tailored to your area of study, just like the web pages. These are professional organizations or resources your professors have asked us to share. We have multimedia results. Now, not everybody gets a multimedia tab. Sometimes these are just on either your top resources or your additional resources. However, counseling, you are our video top users. You are our power users for our visual resources. Alexander Street and Films on Demand are your favorites for your professors. And if you ever have a link assigned to you to watch a video and it doesn't work, as long as you've got the title, you can find it in one of those two. Sometimes links just expire, databases do updates and it messes things up. It happens. That's not a call out on anybody's professor, but just be aware that that's probably your best bet for finding those resources without a link. We have our books and ebooks, and all of these things are searchable through UC Search. I do want to point out that the DSM and the DSM-5TR are now available full text online, which is very exciting. We have additional resources. Okay. These are different for everyone, and almost everyone does have Learning Express Library. For some of you who are going to have professional exams to take at the end of this, so counseling will have the NCE, nursing will have the NCLEX, teachers will have the Praxis if you haven't already done your Praxis, if you're going a non-traditional route. A lot of sample tests and tools are available through Learning Express Library, so just be aware that that is there. The other thing that I want to point out is Mental Measurements Yearbook and Test in Print. Because there is a little bit of confusion around this resource. There are some people who seem to think that we don't have it. We do. It's right here. There you go. I feel the need to clarify that point of confusion. Okay. Moving on. Some of you will also have a tab for journals. Counseling has a lot of journals that we buy individually. Education has some, business has some, allied health and sports science has some, but most of them do not have enough for us to need a whole separate page for them. But counseling does. These journals are purchased, all of these journals, no matter what tab they're, no matter what guide they're on, are purchased, as we call it, a la carte. Now, in this case, it does not mean that we're serving up a journal with a delicious side of ice cream. It means that we have to buy these journals individually. Some journals cannot be purchased through a database, or in some cases, we only need one or two journals and it wouldn't be a good value for us to buy them as part of a database. So we buy them this way. Now, you're going to find that the databases contain so many great resources, you may never need to come look at these journals. But if you're researching a really niche topic, you may find that you want to come look at these journals because they may be something that you need specific access to, or maybe you're not finding enough on your topic and you need to come out to these resources. All right, and that's going to bring us back to our top resources. Any questions so far? And as a reminder, I know I'm talking really fast. I know I'm covering a lot, and it can feel overwhelming. So remember, this is being recorded. You can refer back to it later. No one expects you to memorize everything that I'm saying. But also, No one should feel uncomfortable asking questions. That's what we're here for. So feel free. Yes, Kristen.
So this might be a to counseling specific question, and we can totally take it offline if so. You called out the mental measurements yearbook and tests in print. What is that? What does that mean?
Good question. So, mental measurements yearbook and test and print is a tool for assessing assessment instruments. That sounds very circular, but so if you publish a test, or if you are, for those of you who are in your PhD, EDD era, and you're going to have to find a survey or assessment tool to use in that process, you can look those tools up. Many of them will be summarized. The full text is not there, but many of them will be summarized in mental measurements test and print. And the things you're looking for, like information on reliability and validity, will be summarized there, as well as reviews on the test and its effectiveness and that kind of thing are there. So if you're going in that direction with your life, mental measurements yearbook test and print is really good. Or if you're reading an article and they talk about a testing instrument that they used and you want more detail on that testing instrument, you can find information on many of those tests in mental measurements yearbook test and print. These used to be, the reason this is such a long-tailed database title is because they used to be two separate things and they merged, but they decided they both wanted to keep their full name. All right. So, but does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, so for those of you who are interested in full text tests, we do have a database called APA Psych Tests, and there are some full text tests in there. And again, for those of you who may be going into that period where you're going to need to find those surveys and assessment tools, APA Psych Test does have some. It will give you some of the information like reliability and validity as well. Although you may have to go to both of those to get all of the information you need. But APA Psych Tests will also frequently include full text of test and information and permissions on being able to use those. So some of you will be fortunate enough to find the tests that you need in Psych Tests. Not everybody, unfortunately, but some of you will be able to use that. Okay. Y'all, I still have too many windows open. I'm going to drive myself do laddie tap. All right. Back to our databases. Okay, so I'm going to hit some greatest hits right now for everybody. So allied health and sports science, health and human services. CINAHL, Medline, Sport Discus. These are your three best database resources. CINAHL, Medline, Sport Discus. Sport Discus in particular is focused particularly on athletics, athletes, coaching. CINAHL and Medline are more focused generally on health and medicine. Okay. Business, ABI Inform and Business Source Premier. Those are your best resources. Now, y'all may be saying, why do we have so many resources that aren't the best resource? Because there are other purposes for these. For example, the Business Plans Handbook is not a research tool per se. It is to help you develop business plans. Nexus Uni is great if you're looking specifically at legal information or you're looking for very specific documentation, but it's not necessarily where you're going to go to find scholarly articles. And tonight we're focusing on those scholarly articles and those research tools more than we're focusing on the other things. So, but if you have questions about the other things, ask them, and I'm happy to answer those questions. So for counseling, we have psych articles, psych info, psychology and behavioral sciences, SAGE journals, and the sociological collection. For education, we have ERIC, Education Source, and SAGE journals. And for information systems and technology, for you all, it depends a little bit what you're trying to do. So we have ABI Inform Global and we have Business Source Premier. And if you're looking at how technology is implemented in business, that's a great place for you to be. So if you want to know how healthcare is using blockchain, I'm going to assume that healthcare can use blockchain. All I know is that blockchain also has something to do with NFTs, and I don't really know what any of that means other than pictures of monkeys. So technology is leaving me behind, but I know that much and I feel good about it. But if you're looking at how these things are developed, in other words, the programming aspects of things, then you would want to look maybe at ACM and IEEE. So in terms of which of these databases are best for you, it's really ABI Inform, Business Source Premier, ACM Digital, and IEEE, but between those, it kind of falls on the divide of practical application versus development. Okay. And now it's your turn to help me. I need topics. I need to demonstrate to you all how to do some of these searches. And the best way for that to happen is for you to give me topics. Do not make me make up my own topics. I'll do it. Maybe I'll get to figure out what NFTs are about besides monkey pictures. But this is your opportunity to get me to do your research for you and show you how I would approach a topic that maybe you're not even sure if you want to do it, but you're thinking about it. You're wondering if it's a good topic to go down the road with. Nope. All right. I guess we're learning about NFTs tonight. Okay. So let's go into ABI Inform Global. You can continue to suggest topics as we go down this road. So I know that NFT stands for non-fungible token. I feel very confident about this. Oh, thank God. Okay, politics of leadership. I'm so glad somebody gave me a topic. Okay, so for the politics of leadership, the database that I would recommend for this is Career and Technical. So Career and Technical is on many different links, but we're just going to go to databases A to Z to grab it. It is on your leadership guide, I can tell you that. Career and Technical Education is not actually an education database. Career and Technical Education is more of a professional development and vocational skills database. So we're gonna oh well, it does say that it's good for vocational information. So there we go. Okay. So we're gonna say politics of leadership. Now you don't really need to put the of in there. Anytime we've got things like of, the, whatever, it's just gonna kind of ignore them. So we can just roll on through this. So we have 17,789 results. Before we get any further into our searches, let's talk about our topics. And let's also talk about what kind of searches we need to construct. Those of you who are in the PhD and EDD programs are going to have to, if not immediately, eventually, conduct what is called an exhaustive search. Those of you who are in your master's programs, you do not have to conduct exhaustive searches. What an exhaustive search is, theoretically, is that you're going to find everything ever about your topic, or at least everything from within the time period that you are limited to, typically 5 to 7 years. When we conduct an exhaustive search, we need to think about our language very carefully and precisely. And I know when I talk about this, it sounds like I'm trying to help you get around it. I promise you that is not what's happening. What we're doing is we're talking about how to construct a search so that it is functional for us, because it is not functional to have to go through 17,789 results. That is a number that is ineffective, right? That may as well be 50 billion, because we're not going to ever go through 17,000. In fact, most people, as research tells us, don't ever go past page 3 of a search. So when we have page after page after page, we know that we're going to miss things that are effective and impactful to our research because they're just drowned out. So let's take this and let's also put this topic into our UC search Let's talk about that for just a minute. And we have 408,766, just a few. We don't want to include political science. That's not what we're looking for. Away with it. So now we're down to 288,000. One of the reasons there's so many more here is because this is going to include books, magazines, videos, everything. But what you're definitely going to see here is that these articles are probably not really what you're looking for, right? So don't quit. But when we're talking about politics and leadership, are we really talking about office politics? Are we talking about personnel management? How can we bring this in to a measurable scale? And that's what's so important when we're doing these searches is we want things to be a measurable skill. So personnel management in schools is a great way to take this because really, I think the biggest lie I've ever been told in my life is when you get out of high school, you won't have to deal with all this petty nonsense. Oh, it just goes from being petty high school nonsense to office politics, right? That's the evolution of life. And I think that is just shenanigans. All right. So let's talk about how we can build this topic. So let's change this to personnel management in schools. Okay. Now, our search is getting smaller, but our search got bigger first. Don't panic. Don't panic. We're going to change this to full text. Now, panic a little bit, but not yet. When we're doing those exhaustive searches, we can't always click full text. But one thing that I want y'all to consider is you are not in the deep end yet. Right now, you are working on refining your topics and deciding on your direction and exactly how you want to phrase things and the language that you want to use, which means that right now it's okay to click that full text button to narrow your search down and to think about how you want to approach your topic so that you are going in with more precise language. Now, because you've given me personnel management in schools, I can leave career and technical education for a minute. And I can come over to too many windows. I can come over to too many windows, education, and we're going to go into education source. And just so that you realize that this is not all or nothing, anytime we're in the same host family of databases, we can search multiple databases from that host. So in this case, we're in EBSCO, and since two of my education databases are from EBSCO, I can search them both at the same time. I'm going to paste this in again. And now I have 23,000. I know you're still thinking this is a million results. Full text. We're going to start with it narrowed down. That's okay to do. You're going to be able to build back out. Now, even if you are doing an exhaustive search, you can click the peer-reviewed button. Let's talk about peer review for a minute. Peer-reviewed articles, academic journal articles, scholarly journal articles, those are all the same thing. Those terms are interchangeable. When we click that button, we limit our search to peer-reviewed journals. That does not mean everything in those journals is peer-reviewed. Things like reviews, letters to the editor, editorials, trade publications, those can all be included in peer-reviewed journals. So you need to know how to identify a peer-reviewed article specifically. First of all, it's going to be written by an expert author. Okay? I can't go write for a math journal because I am not a math expert. Trust me. I don't think any librarian has ever gone, I'm so good at math, I'm going to go into libraries. No. Okay? Number 2, peer review. This is your level of expertise. When we talk about peer review, what we really mean are peer editors. So my article for my library journal is going to be edited by my peers, which is other librarians. That's your second level of expertise. Your third level of expertise, expert readers. These articles contain a visual cue for you, which is that they're going to use professional language and technical terminology with the expectation that their audience knows and understands those terms. So when you look at an article, if it seems like it's a little bit more formal, if it's using a lot of technical terminology, that's a good sign. The last layer of expertise is expert sources. You write a paper, you cite your sources. They write a paper, they cite their sources. If you're looking at something in a journal and you're undecided, you're on the fence about whether or not it would be considered scholarly and it has zero or very few references or works cited, it is not going to pass the test. Okay, it is not scholarly. Another visual cue is that scholarly articles are typically longer and more in-depth. Only 1 or 2 pages is probably not gonna pass the test for this. So if you're ever not sure, look for those visual cues. And if you're ever really not sure, you can send it to me and I will look at it and tell you. But just keep those things in mind. Those are the ways that you can identify a scholarly article. Now, this is still too many results. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can make our searches better and more specific. One of the ways we can do that is by using Boolean modifiers. Now we've got a button here that says natural language searching. Natural language searching is how Google conducts its searches. It lets us search the way that we speak. And I know you guys aren't looking at me, but I feel like I need to look at you and make sure I don't miss any questions while I'm talking about this. So when I'm in Google, and I search Google, what was that episode of Stargate where they hit the golf balls through the Stargate and it was like Groundhog's Day? And Google is going to take all of that and break it down and give me probably the correct answer. That is the nature of natural language searching. I can search the way I speak. The databases are not built for natural language searching. Even though they're starting to add that as an option, I do not encourage you to use that option because it's not very good yet. I feel like in another year, I'll be like, oh, look how good the natural language searching has gotten. But right now, it's terrible. Cut it out. Okay. The other thing that we're really used to with Google that can be a little bit of a pitfall, and for those of you who have maybe been doing Google Scholar or have been already doing some research in Google, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that Google is a learning algorithm. It knows things about you. Okay. And when we talk about it being a learning algorithm, that means that it is assuming things about our search. So, for example, if Kristen is interested in buying a toaster and Kathleen is interested in buying a toaster and you do the exact same search, you may not get the same results. Maybe Kathleen has previously purchased appliances from Ninja and Kristen has previously purchased appliances from Smeg. Okay, you'll get results based on those previous purchases. But also, maybe Kristen is a big old nerd like myself. And Kristen last night searched for Battlestar Galactica and tonight is searching for toasters. Well, toasters is the slang for the bad guys in Battlestar Galactica, so she could get a result that is totally off base from just making toast, right? Because it's a learning algorithm. So when we use the databases, it is algorithmically neutral in the sense that it is that it is not learning from our previous searches. And that's a good thing because we don't want it to assume things about the information we want. We want it to give us all the information and let us make that decision for ourselves. Okay, that means that we have to approach language in the databases very strategically. So let's talk about strategic searching. All right, so we've already set full text, we've already set peer reviewed. We're also going to set our dates to the past 5 years. For most of you, you're going to be working within a 5 to 7 year range. There are some exceptions to this rule. If you are looking at a seminal work, in other words, you are looking at a work that provided a foundational concept or theory, then that would be the exception to the limit. So if you are looking at the works of Carl Jung and how those are being used in psychology and counseling today, you might have to go back and look at the original works of Carl Jung, because that is foundational to what you are working on. Now, you might not be able to use things from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and all the other years in between those theories being developed, because that's how it was used in the 70s. That's not how it was used today, and it's not necessarily foundational to how it's used today. So we are looking at foundational theories and seminal works as exceptions to that 5 to 7 year time period. We are also saying if we're looking specifically at historical topics, or we're looking at time progressions. In other words, we started at point A, and now we're at point F. What happened at points B, C, etc., to get us where we are, right? So there are times when there may be exceptions to this rule, but typically we're going to work within the last 5 to 7 years. And that's also, you notice, one of the things that cuts the largest number of our articles. So always make sure that you are choosing your date range, because that's going to take a big chunk of things that you don't want out for you. Okay. Beyond that, let's look at a couple of articles. One of the things we want to make sure that we're doing is we can get a lot of information just from here. We know this is 8 pages. We know it's from Eric. We know it's from a journal. I can come in here and I can click on this and it's going to give me more information. One of the things I want to make sure I do is I always want to read my abstract. And I know you may be thinking this is just one paragraph. Why does it matter? Do you want to read one paragraph and decide that it's not relevant to your search, or do you want to read all 8 pages and make that decision? We know the answer to that is one paragraph, right? So make sure you're reading your abstract. The other thing that we want to look at is descriptors. These can also be called keywords or author supplied keywords or subjects, and these can help us make decisions about our language. Maybe there's a terminology that I have not implemented here that I want to use. Maybe there's language I could adjust that will help me get to a better search. So I want to think about what terminology I can change here that might help me build my search out. Now, we're going to pretend for just a minute that, okay, this one is full text from Eric, so we're not going to pretend with this one. But if you wanted to view a full text from Eric, that just means it takes it out. Eric kind of exists in parallel worlds, where it is both a database within our database families and it is a government database. Some articles have not yet been indexed into the EBSCO version of this, so you have to go to the government page and it's just going to link you out. Still valid. All the citation information and everything is still valid. Don't let that make you feel like you can't use those results. Okay, but let me scroll down to one that seems promising. Let's look at this one. Okay, so I have once again chosen one that's a terrible example. Wow. Have you been in a class with me before, anyone, and seen what a bad example picker I am? Because this is, okay, let's look at this one. This one's very promising. Let's look at this one. That is a skill that I have, is being a bad example picker. So if I come here, I can look at my references and I can see all of the sources that this article cited. And I can see also how many people cited this article. So if I go to this article, for example, I can see all of their references and I can also see their cited by. Cited by is a gold mine, okay? Cited by is amazing because your references are always going to be older than the article you're in. Cited by is always going to be newer than the article you're in. So references are the articles that these authors cited. Cited by is people who cited these authors. All right. So just keep that in mind. It's great to be able to build your search out. Okay. So back to our search. Let's play with our language a little bit. Boolean modifiers. Boolean is a nonsense word, so don't worry if you're like, I don't know what that word means. It doesn't mean anything except for what I'm about to show you. In the databases, there are 5 main Boolean modifiers. Now, if you go to the tutorials page for many of these, you're going to see that there's more than 5. But these 5 will work pretty much across the board. And, or, not, quotation marks, and truncation. Okay. If I put and in here, it really won't change anything. In fact, if I delete this in, it's really not going to change anything. Okay, my search is not going to change substantively when I do these things. Right now, and is in my search. And you might say, but it's not in your search, but it is, okay? Right now, I'm searching for personnel and management and schools. It exists even if I don't type it in, okay? I'm searching for 3 keywords. If I put any of these words into quotation marks, I change this from keywords into a key phrase. So, for example, I want to focus personnel management into a key phrase. So right now I have 1,448 results. If I put personnel management into quotation marks, I have 528 results. Remember that we started with over 20,000 results in this search. And way more than that in some of the other searches. So we're focusing in by being strategic with how we conduct our search. The next Boolean modifier we want to talk about is or. So I'm going to say that we want to talk about personnel management specifically in high schools. I imagine that high schools probably have a higher turnover than elementary schools, for example. So now I have 114 results. But there is a synonymous term to high schools, and that is secondary schools. So I want to take my search string here, and I'm going to mirror it. And I'm going to say secondary schools. And Kathleen, anytime you want to tell me if there's a specific school group you want to look at, let me know and I'll switch this out. But anytime we're doing this, we want to be thinking about our synonymous terms, especially for those exhaustive searches. So high schools and secondary schools are synonymous. Primary school and middle school is synonymous, right? Middle school, intermediate school, junior high. Primary school, all those are all synonymous terms. So you, like, I don't know. I've lived in 4 different states now, and what qualified as middle school was different in every state, right? What language was used. So I really want to be thinking about how I'm going to use my language and what synonymous terms I can use. I also want to think about truncation. So before we get there, we could have also put instead of so for personnel management in schools, I also could have put or human resources in schools, right? That's a synonymous term. And human resources is the larger search. So that might be where I want to think about focusing my efforts. But I could also be more specific and think about a particular group of personnel. For example, am I managing teachers or am I managing the administrative staff in schools? I could be more specific. And anytime we're working with a very broad pool of articles, yeah, you can search principals. So, actually, let's leave this. Let's change my direction here. So I'm going to get rid of the word schools because I'm in an education database. So schools is kind of implied unless I want to be more specific to like elementary, high school, etc. But let me put in principal. I will never forget that I learned to spell principal from my principal because he's our pal. And I'm going to put personnel management And so now I'm mirroring my search again with human resources and personnel management, but I've changed the word principal. Do principals still tell students that they can spell it by remembering that they're their pal? Is that still a thing that they do? Okay, yes, we could also do administration. So let's look at what we've got. We have 127 results focusing on human resources and the principal. Now you're going to see that some of these articles are not in English. I'm going to tell you that you can narrow this by language, but you really can't narrow it by region. Narrowing it by region is very difficult to do. Narrowing it by language is achievable, but there's not going to be enough that you really need to worry about that. We're down under 200 results. You're in good shape. You're golden, okay? Now, let's change principal out to administration for a minute. We have 1,734. We went back up and we're going to get bigger. What about administrators? We're not getting those in this search. So that brings us to our next Boolean modifier, which is truncation. Okay, we're going to truncate. And when I say we're going to truncate, what that means is I want to put an asterisk at the point where my word breaks off into a suffix. Administrator, administrative, administration. If I truncate, I get all of those potential suffixes in one search. If I don't truncate, I have to do each of those searches individually, which is in fact a hassle. So my search did go up, but we can get more specific again, right? We can continue playing with this until we hit the level of specificity where we're finding what we need without being overwhelmed. All right. So we've done and, we've done or, we've done quotation marks, we've done truncation. That just leaves not. Okay. I'm going to delete this for a minute. So we're going to go back to human resources and administration. And remember, I'm in an education database, so all of my results are going to be education related. But I want to be more specific for just a second, and I'm going to get rid of something. Let me see who I want to throw out of this search. You know, I think I have decided that I don't care about higher education. So I'm going to get rid of higher education from my search. And in order to make sure that I get rid of the phrase higher education specifically, I'm going to put it into quotation marks. And remember, right now I have 1,860 results. Now I'm going to run my search. And I have 1,518. So I got rid of 300 results. So what does not do? Not lets me kick something out of my search. So if I feel like my results are being diluted because there's one overwhelming body of research in that particular area, so for example, administration and higher education, or teacher burnout in middle school, or listen, I used to teach Sunday school for middle school boys. I truly believe in my heart that it is the hardest world for a middle school teacher. Okay. Or you might want to get rid of something like neurodivergency, and all the body of research is on autism. You want to see what else is out there, right? So not lets me pull something out of my search. It lets me make my search more specific by kicking something out. Almost all the others are kind of adding something to my search in a way. Not is taking something away. Okay, so we've got and or not, quotation marks, truncation. We're good. All right, one last thing that I do want to show you is if you are in one of these articles and there's an article in the references that you want to see or an article in the cited by that you want to see. I see Eric is not letting me do cited by yet. Here we go. Here's one from Education Source. It'll play nice with me. Cited by 0, so it's not going to play nice for me. But let's look at our references anyway. If we're in our references and there's an article that I want to see if we have and it's not immediately linked out for me, I can use the Find Journals tool. This is all in Bulgarian, boy. This is not going to work out for me. Let's look for the yearbook of administration and management department. I don't think we're going to have that. If we don't have it, you can always request it from Interlibrary Loan. But you can come in here and you can do a journal search and search by journal title. And it did not copy and paste because why would it do anything that I think it's going to do? Technology is not on my side. This is why I have beef with Chrome. I just want to say, by the way, that if you must pick a browser, Firefox is better. That is not me speaking for University of the Cumberlands. That is a personal opinion, but I stand by it. Let's see if it'll let me do this one. There we go. Okay, so if I wanted to see if we had research in social sciences and technology, I could do that search. It's going to show me where we have it, what databases and times we have it for, and I could then go grab that article rather than having to wait for it to come in from Interlibrary Loan. But you can always request these things from Interlibrary Loan if you're not sure. Okay, any questions? Anything I didn't cover that people want to know about? Anything I did cover that people missed that I need to go back over? While you're thinking about that, I'm going to put the survey in the chat box. Where will you find the recording? So if you go back to our homepage and you go to the library orientation sessions, you will be able to find the recording right here. And folks, just for the record, if you can't find something ever, the easiest thing on any of these pages to find is my contact information. And please feel free to reach out to me. I do my best to get back to people as quick as I could. Could you show us how to use the library search for the topic developing national stock exchanges across variable economy sizes? Okay, so that would be a topic that I would take to ABI Inform. I think you would have to probably break that down into more than one search, but I would take it to ABI. My session is about to expire. Don't do that to me. Okay. So by doing that search, I got 5,993 results. I think I would put I want to try a different database for this. Actually, I want to come back to Academic Search Complete. Because sometimes ABI is a little too inside baseball. Okay, so now I have 69 results, and this is a good example of where we might want to use Boolean modifiers because they're out of the gate suggesting the term stock markets instead of stock exchanges. So if I were to say, or, I'm going to get a few more results, and that's probably going to help me develop my search a little bit better. So thinking about the language for that. Thank you, Kathleen. So yes, I'm going to apologize right now if it's not pronounced Cavill, but I'm going to pronounce it Cavill for right now, and feel free to correct me. But I think I would play around with the terminology stock exchange versus stock market. And I would also then, once I kind of established the term that I wanted to use, But even maybe truncate that. Make sure I'm getting my terminology that you've given me here correct. Variable economy size. That's so specific that it kind of broke it. So I think we need to back out a little bit about that and focus on developing the national stock market versus the national stock exchange. And then also maybe just instead of saying variable economy size, play with maybe just economy size and see if that gives me anything. They gave me a very small result, but I think that's probably a good place for you to start. And also, when we're seeing things like emerging economy versus like established economy, rather than saying economy size, I think you could come out and say emerging economy. And that gives me 16 results. So think about how economy sizes are broken down, and do those as individual searches would be my recommendation for getting started. Does that help? All right, folks, please remember to do your survey or I cannot tell your professors that you were here. One more time, I'm going to pop that link into the chat. My contact info. So I will type my email into the chat as well. I am Carrie Bird at ucumberlands.edu. Not we did talk a little bit about it, but I will clarify. Not every article in the databases are scholarly. You can set limiters to make sure you're getting primarily scholarly articles, and then you can weed out any things like editorials, letters to the editor, reviews, things of that nature. I hope that helps. And if you have more questions as you get a little further into it, feel free to reach out. Paul, I'm always glad to hear people learn something from it. And I appreciate everybody who gave me some of their time tonight. Thank you. I will hang around for a few more minutes in case there's any other questions, but otherwise, once you completed the survey, you're free to go.